this is Roger, thanks for dropping by. Welcome to Update 2, Group 2 of Update 2 of the 2022 Project Orchids. There's an awful lot of twos in there, isn't there? Okay, so same format as the other updates. We started with 3 plants and we did an initial look at them. And then in Update 1 we bought out those video clips of the initial look and refilmed the plants as they were then. And now that we're getting to Update 2, we will bring out the video clips filmed in Update 1 and film them again today as a direct comparison to see how well they're doing, see what progression we've had. Now obviously at this time of year we should be getting some of the maximum progress. Should be. Well, let's get on and have a look. So last time we looked at this one, we had a little bit of dieback on the end of this cane. Well, that's finished. It's not going to die back anymore. I've got a feeling. No, that's the original leaf with the brown tip. We had tiny little bud, or I thought a single bud at the time on this cane. That's developed into 2 lovely blooms. These will last an absolute age. They last a long time. And are very, very attractive. I'll come back and try and focus on that. The other cane basically has finished growing now and produces its 2 buds. It's a pity that cane hangs down because obviously we can't see these blooms. There is no signs of new growths yet. Now that might be later, after the blooms perhaps start to fade. But this is a strange one because last year's canes grew through the winter, slowly but surely. And if that's the case, then if the new growths start quite late in the season, it won't matter so much. So we'll see how we go with that. Right, and the next thing I'll do is see if I can do a quick focus on this thing. I can touch the screen, see if it will focus in on that. They are very attractive blooms and they're sort of frilly inside the lip. So well worth having, no fragrance that I can detect, but long lasting and an interesting shape and interesting colours on the lip and definitely inside the lip. Life, it's a blackbird just run down the roof. It's actually got hobnail boots on by the sounds of it. Okay, that's a quick update on that one, and we'll revisit that one when I start Update 2 for the Project Orchids. So here we go with what this one looks like in July. And quite honestly, the only real change is the fact that the blooms have finished. They finished about 4 or 5 days ago. Long lasting blooms. Now what I'm hoping is to see some action on the plant, because this plant has done no growing. Yeah, once those canes finish, they produce the buds and produce the blooms, and nothing else has happened, and it's still not happening, but then the blooms have only just finished. There's a very slight showing of white as though some roots are starting, but what should happen now is there should be a flush of growth, and that should be new growths and new roots. So need to keep this one hydrated now, so that'll encourage it to sort of move, and we'll see if it gets going. As I said, all I can hope for with this one is new roots, new root system, or extend the root system, and some new growths. So we'll have to wait and see. Okay, the expectation on the Miltonia moreliana type hybrid. When we last looked at this, we had new growths, some progressing reasonably well and some just starting, and signs of some older leaves sort of yellowing, probably expecting them to drop off during the summer months. So what have we actually got then? Well, what we've got is new growths progressing quite well. If you think that one was tiny, this one's starting to get to maturity. No bulb yet, but it's getting up to the right height. There's 3 on a single growth there. Round here, these are pushing on quite nicely. They're all progressing nicely. This is the point where on an oncidium type, which Miltonias are, they're in the alliance, these become drinkers when they're growing heavily like this, and could do with a reasonable bit of feed, but not all at once. What they don't like is a really, really strong feed and then 3 flushes. What they'd rather have is 3 weak feeds and then a flush, or weaker feeds anyway, but they need some feed to push these growths on. So they're all growing on nicely. I'm still expecting a good blooming on this, and I'm still expecting more of the older leaves to yellow and drop. We now do have some leafless bulbs. Yeah, some have actually fallen and been helped off. You're going to fall off, aren't you? I've made my mind up. Okay, so that's the Miltonia. It's doing well. You know, I mean, new growth's looking like this, so it's doing well. That's that one. Okay, so the progress on the Miltonia is as expected, so nothing unusual here. More of the older leaves are yellowing all the time. That's fine. That's a progress that I would have expected from it. And in addition to that, I said we should get some blooms on some of these new growths. Well, not sure about that one. That one's got a, we start with this double one here by the label. That one's got a spike on it. This one's got its spike coming, so that's just started. This one here is progressing. That was the most advanced growth last time round. That's actually formed its bulb and its spike is progressing nicely. The other new growth next to it is smaller. That doesn't seem to have a spike yet. This one round here has got a spike. This one here has got a spike. This one here has got, I'm not going to call that a spike. I don't think that's going to actually progress. And then this one here has got a spike. So it's done what was expected of it. A few of the new growths haven't got their spikes, but I'm going to say yet. Yeah, because if you look at the progression of the spikes, this is the most advanced new growth, and the spike's up here. This is the next most advanced new growth, and the spike's here. Yeah, and then the other new growths are not as far advanced, and the spikes are still tucked in the leaves. So the fact that there's a couple of new growths, actually that has got its spike starting, seem to not necessarily have their spike. I think overall we're going to get one new growth without a spike, because if that is its attempt at a spike, it's distorted and it's in the wrong place. It's actually on the outside of the leaf instead of coming up in there. So this may be the one new growth that doesn't produce its spike. So as far as I'm concerned, this has done exactly as expected. What we should now get is a nice show of blooms, and yeah, it should be a good show. Even if there are only a couple of blooms per spike, it should still be a good show. But I think it may be staggered. Yeah, it might be a staggered blooming on the grounds that obviously these are going to be the first to open, however many they are, followed by those, and progressively down to either new growths that haven't started their spike yet or are only just starting. If those spikes are at that stage, will they catch this one up? Well, we'll have to wait and see. And it may be that this will still be in bloom for the next update. But if it isn't, I'll still do a short clip to include, yeah, so that we don't miss out basically by it blooming in between the two updates. So that's that one. And the last one in group 2 is this Masdevallia, which I discussed in the March video with this one, that it was an oddity because the plant itself actually looks quite healthy. At that particular time there were 1 or 2 leaves looking like this. Well, they still look like that, and a few others have joined them. So there are a few leaf tips with some yellowing issues, but there are new growths and quite a few of the new leaves are pushing on nicely now. The main reason I thought of it as an anomaly was the lack of roots. That seems to have been addressed now. The plant is producing quite a few roots, and they are getting well down into the pot. And so I just need to turn it round a bit. And I believe the reason for that is the moss that I put round the top, which we discussed last time. I said that the pot itself was staying wet, but the top was drying out fast. So by putting the moss there, it was holding the moisture near the top where there were new roots. And now those roots have been able to stay hydrated and get down into the pot. Now, it's not a giant root system by any means, but at least it is one, and there's plenty more coming. So what we need from that now, we've got some roots. The media isn't old, so it can stay in that pot. What we need now is some blooms. That would be nice, wouldn't it? This one hasn't bloomed for ages. But it's growing its roots now, and its new growths are progressing and getting up somewhere near full size, because the ones when we looked last time were a bit small. They weren't maturing properly. I think this plant will get better and better as that root system gets better. And hopefully the new growths will then get up to, you know, the same size as previous growths. And hopefully, seeing as I'm not quite sure why, we don't get too much more of this yellowing leaf tips. Now that's going to be either an acidity issue with pH and or a nutrient issue, like there are some when it perhaps could do without them. It's more likely to be that way round. It isn't going to be lack of nutrients, not with these. They can live off next to nothing. So anyway, so that's that one. That's the last one in group 2. Okay, as far as the Masdevallia goes, it has done something I'd rather it hadn't done, but we did sort of look into that in the, a couple of months ago. I deliberately haven't touched this so that we can see it. It would have been so tempting to trim the ends of these leaves off with the brown tips and the ones with the yellowing tips. But I need it to be seen in case anybody else has come across it and might know. I mean, I just think it may have had too much feed. I doubt if it's had too little. I mean, we've got heat to progress with, but what we've got here is a distorted bud. But I left it on so that you could see the colour. Now, it is a deep orange with stripes, and it's got that purple sheen on it that you get from the tiny purple hairs. It's a very attractive bloom. But what's coming on behind it is more. Yeah? So last time I said, right, the next thing you need to do is get some blooms going. Well, its first attempt is distorted. I'd say that's undersized as well. So we'll see what the next few do. As far as the root progress is concerned, whoops, dripping all over me cloth. We do have a lot of root tips all over the place and an awful lot spreading down in through that moss. So I think it's done what was almost expected of it. By getting a decent root system, it can now bloom. It's got the strength to bloom. It's still producing new growth. There's still new growth, new leaves pushing up all over the place. And it may just be that these are old. But I need somebody who grows Masdevallias and has done for a very long time to say, do they drop old leaves? And when they drop old leaves, do they tend to go yellow from the tip and run down the leaf until eventually they fall off? Question. I haven't got an answer. I haven't. It's only recently that I've managed to get a couple of Masdevallias to look like a half decent plant, and I've still got some that don't. So yeah, open-ended question. Is that natural? And if it isn't, any ideas what it might be? And we'll go from there. That's that one. That's the last one in this group. Okay, so there we go then. That was group 2 for update 2. The last one, group 3, will come in some days' time. Put a little bit of gap between them, and then we will put it all away again for another 2 months, in which case we'll revisit again. But for now, that was the end of group 2 in update 2. Hope you like the format. These are quite easy to put together from my point of view, and if people are enjoying watching them, I'm quite happy to do them. So see you next time. Bye for now.